I'll use you.
Okay. Can you see the slide in full screen?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Good. We can start.
Okay, let's do this. Sorry about that, everyone. So, hi, everyone. I'm Katerina Skroumpelou, and I created this talk together with Jeff Cross, who is my boss from Nrwl. So the credits go to him and myself for this talk. And this talk is an X for the Angular CLI users. So Jeff is the Nrwl co-founder. He's a farmer of pigs, chickens, and humans, and you can follow him at Jeff B. Cross on Twitter. And myself, I'm Katerina. I'm part of the NX core team. I'm a GD for Angular, Maps, Web Technologies, and I'm the Angular Athens Meetup co-founder. I'm a speaker and instructor and a gut person. And today I got my first shot of the Pfizer vaccine, and I'm very, very happy. Also, my arm is a bit sore, so yeah. And Jeff and I have the BFJeff hashtag, which you can search for on Twitter. So let's start to talk about NX, and not NX in general, which makes your life easier, as Stefan said in the beginning, but specifically NX for the Angular CLI users, which I hope most of you are, since we're in an Angular meetup, right? So what if you could do a fresh checkout of your workspace and have the app running in a few seconds? What if you could look forward to writing E2E tests? And what if your PRs could be validated in CI instantly? How would that change how your team writes software? Would more features get done in a sprint? Would products go to market faster? Well, NX is the tool that will help bring all those what ifs to life. But yeah, that's the animation. But why should you use NX in the first place? I guess you're already thinking, I already use the Angular CLI. Why would I need another tool for building or testing? Is there indeed so much added value? And to top that, you're thinking, besides, I don't even work on a monorepo. This is what NX is for, right? Well, we hope we will answer both of your questions today. In this presentation, we'll see how NX will make your team happy and your builds fast. First, we'll look at the modern tools that NX offers and supports, and then we'll talk about building and build times, which is very, very, very interesting. So let's talk first about the modern tools that NX offers. NX offers support for all the modern tools out there. So it offers support for ESLint. So as you all know, TSLint is deprecated, and ESLint is the new community standard for TypeScript projects. Thanks to TypeScript ESLint by James Hendry and contributors, of course. So you can use ESLint, you can opt in to use ESLint for your Angular and in general your NX projects. NX lets you choose between ESLint and TSLint. I think now it defaults to ESLint. In any case, it also offers support for Cypress. Cypress is an E2E test runner built for modern web. It has a lot of great features like time travel, real-time reloads, automatic waiting, screenshots and videos, and more. By default, when creating a new front-end application, NX will use Cypress to create the E2E test project. Cypress will run in headed mode by default, but you can also run your tests in headless mode. Videos and screenshots will be available for debugging in both cases. In headless mode, your tests will be rerun every time you make a change to your application code. You can also run your E2E tests against a production build, and of course, you can run your tests on your CI as well. You can also specify a custom URL to test, and you can take advantage of Cypress code completion thanks to TypeScript, and in general, you can customize your Cypress configuration however you need by just modifying the Cypress JSON file as you would normally do. So we also offer support for Jest. Jest is the NX default unit test runner for front-end apps. We added optional support for Jest in NX 2 years ago because we love the performance and developer ergonomics of the tool. Karma is still an option, but Jest is fast and fun, and it's a well-maintained project, and it has a thriving community. Another tool that I'm very excited about, and I'm one of the maintainers of the Nrwl storybook package, so you should check it out, is the storybook support. So storybook, if you don't know what it is, it's a storybook. It's an environment for developing UI components in isolation. What does that mean? It allows you to browse a component library, view the different stages of its component, and interactively develop and test components. That means that you don't have to run the whole app or build the whole application just to test a component. It gives you the ability to just run individual components in a sort of isolated environment, which is very, very good for testing and browsing your components. It's super useful, especially if you're in a large team or organization with shared libraries. So with the NX Storybook plugin, you can generate storybook configurations for individual projects, apps, or libraries. And you can do so for Angular and for React as well by just using that command I have down there. So it's amazing because you have your components ready and you can just run that schematic, that line of code that I'm showing you there, and stories will be automatically generated and you will have your storybook configuration instantly ready for you. When generating a storybook configuration, the amazing thing is that you also get the option to set up an E2E Cypress app that is configured to run against the project storybook instance. So with NX, you can build, serve, and watch your changes to your stories. And also, NX helps you migrate from previous versions of Storybook to newer ones. It has these schematics. And some of them I have written. So we also offer support for Prettier. NX set up Prettier automatically. The devs don't have to worry about code formatting, which is cool. You just run NX format and it will run Prettier throughout all your project. And it will only format your changed files. And we will see how that works in a bit. But now it's demo time. And what I will do, I have... so we will see how the command works, how NX works. So in general, you can run npx create NX workspace, and a wizard will pop up and will give you some options that you can use, or you can just pass the options with these flags that you want Angular, you want your first app name to be test app, your style. If you want to use NX Cloud, we will see all this in the demo. But if you want to set up an NX workspace and instantly start working on it, just like you do, just like you create an Angular application with the Angular CLI, in the same way you can create and set up an NX workspace automatically using this command. Now, I may need the help of Stefan at the moment because I have recorded my demos, because after giving a lot of talks, I have learned that always record your demos. So we will see a video of this demo. So I want to make sure that you will be able to see this video. So yeah, let's see. Can you still see my screen? I hope you can. If you cannot see my screen, please step in and let me know. And let me also know.
Not anymore, sorry. It's black screen now.
Okay, so let's try again. Share screen. Give me a moment. Share screen. Share. And you can see my screen now. You can see this video. Can you see the screen, my desktop? You can? No?
Yeah, all good. As I said.
Okay, sorry. So let me also, if you can hear the demo or if I have to speak over it. I will go to our command line and do npx create NX workspace. Let's see what's happening here. First, it will fetch some metadata and do some local installations. and it will ask us for a workspace name. Let's say I will name it my workspace. Then it will ask us what to create in the new workspace. We can, of course, create a totally empty workspace with a layout that works best for building applications. We can create a workspace with a single React application. We can create a workspace with a single Angular application, a workspace with a single Next.js application, or a single Nest application, or a single application built using web components. But we can also build a workspace with a full stack application using React and Express, or Angular and Nest. We can also use the OSS option to create an empty workspace with a layout that works best for open source projects, or nothing else, because that was the end of the list. So let's create a workspace with a single Angular application. It will ask us for the application name. I will say demo app. Default style sheet format, I will go with Sass. Default linter, I will go with ESLint. And should you use Nrwl? It's free, doesn't require registration, and it gives you faster builds, run details, and GitHub integration? Of course, yes. So it will create a sandbox with an X. Let's wait for it to run. It's done. Let's go in our workspace. If we open our workspace in VS Code, let's see a little bit the folder structure. We have the apps folder, which now has our demo app, which is a usual Angular application as you know it, with its app module and its app component. And here is also the demo app E2E, which is the Cypress test that we mentioned before. And it contains an E2E application written in Cypress. But there is also a libs folder, which is now empty, but we will fill in eventually. And there are some tools as well. The schematics folder, where we can add our custom schematics. And as we usually expect, there is the angular.json file and some presets for Jest, the package.json, the nx.json, and that's it, and the ESLint RC.json. I would like to show you the dependency graph, but it will not make very much sense in this application. It will be very, very simple. I will just show it to you. So the dependency graph for our application is pretty simple, and of course it looks like this. The E2E applications depend on the actual applications they're testing. What if, though, we had a more complex application with more dependencies? For this, we will use the NX examples repository, and we will actually see how everything is interconnected.
So that was the first part of the demo. I hope you can still see my screen. So the dependency graph that I showed in the end is a dependency graph. It shows how it's a visualization, like a graph, that shows how everything is connected together and depends on each other, like different libraries, different components, different modules. Of course, the application that was the sample application that was just generated using this command was very, very simple, and you just saw that it was just a one-way thing with 2 nodes. But luckily, there is the github.com/nrwl/nxexamples, which is a repository on GitHub that is maintained and updated very, very frequently as new features get added to NX. And this is a more complex workspace that has a lot of applications that use different components and shared components. And now we will see the second demo, which shows sort of the extents. Not the extents, it just shows a much more complicated example of using NX and what you can do to take advantage of the features there. So let's see the second video before we go on.
So let's take a look what we have here. We have the NX examples folder, which has inside the apps folder, which has a cart application with its E2E tests, and the cart application, we can see that it's a React application. It also has a products application, which, as we can see, is an Angular application. And it also has sub-libraries. It has the cart library, which has inside some parts of the cart application. And it has a products library, which again has some parts of the products application, which we'll see in action in the browser. And it also has a shared library. In the shared library, it has some shared UI components that are used by both of the applications, like the header, which we will see is written in JSX. And some other utility libraries that like the JSXify. And if we take a look, it also has a library for state management, which uses NGRX. And then it has some other UI elements. So let's take a look. What do we see when we run the application? To serve first the cart application, we can do nx serve cart. And it will just run our local server. And we can see the application running, the cart application running in 4200 port. We can see the header here. Now, let's see. When we serve the products application, and we refresh here, we see our products, and again, the same header. As we said, the products application, the carts application is a React application, and the products application is an Angular application. But the NX header that we saw, the shared header, is written in JSX, but it's exported, and we can see that we can import the same element like this in both our Angular application and our React application. And it's imported like this. Another interesting thing to see is that some of our applications, for example, all the applications that go in the cart, all the libraries that go in the carts application are written in React, just like our cart application, and the libraries the UI libraries that go in the products are usually written in Angular. But as we saw, we can have the shared libraries that are written, for example, in JSX. And let's take a look what happens when we run the dependency graph. So, yeah, usually it opens right. Okay, yeah. So the dependency graph for our application looks like this. Pretty more complete than the one we saw in the example application before, right? So we can see that the shared header, for example, which is used both by the products and cart, both the products and the cart application depend on the shared header. Again, the E2E tests, of course, depend on their applications, and we can see all the other dependencies that we have here. For example, the shared header is using the JSXify library, so it depends on this, and so does this UI library here. So in this nice way, we can see the whole dependence graph. We can choose to only see one application, or we can group by folder. Now, let's see. We talked about the affected command. Now, let's change something. Let's go ahead and change something in our header element. For example, let's change the background color from blue and make it red and save. Now, if we go and run NX affected depth graph, the depth graph will show us only these parts of our project which were affected by our change. Our change was in shared header, and both the cards application and the products application depend on the shared header. But the three applications for cards and products depends on the cards and products tab respectively. So if we were to rebuild, retest, or rerun, these parts of the code that were affected would have to do the same thing again, would have to retest or rebuild. So this dependency graph helps us understand a little bit better. If we show the whole card, again, it will show us in red the parts that were affected, and we will have a general better understanding of how our whole code base is affected when we change some small thing. So let's take a look.
So that was the demo. I'm clicking play again, and I hope that you are able to see my presentation. Let me know if you cannot see the presentation, please. I assume that you can see my presentation, so I am moving on. So let's see now how NX, after this nice demo, let's see how NX makes builds fast. So, okay, so let's take as an example a customer service portal with these pages: the knowledge base, the support tickets, and the live chat feature page. This is one application, but we can partition it into several libraries that compose the application. And each section of the application can have its own features, which can be separated into even more libraries. For example, the new ticket feature is the screen where tickets are created. So, and since those sections and features of the app will definitely share some components and utilities, we can extrapolate more libraries out of this, such as a design system and some utilities for communicating with the backend, for example. In a Nrwl application, there would be many more ways to partition and share functionality between libraries, but let's keep it simple for now. Now, let's consider the life cycle when a developer on the team wants to change the layout of the new ticket UI. They would make the code change inside the feature library, then open a pull request. If your CI tooling doesn't understand what changed, sorry, these slides are moving a bit on their own. If your CI tooling doesn't understand what changed and what its impact would be, it will naturally rebuild and retest everything, which will call Jenkins there to burn. And as the project grows in scope, the total CI time will grow with it. If you put that on a graph, and okay, no, where is it? No, I hate automatic. Give me a moment. Okay. If you put that on a graph, we can see that the full time it takes to run CI is really a factor of how many projects you have and how long each of these projects takes to build. We will see that graph again, don't worry. So what NX does is that NX understands how your libraries and application depend on each other in what is called the project graph or the dependency graph, which we saw in the demo, right? So using the project graph, NX can look at what projects were touched in the code change and determine what can be directly or transitively affected. Like we saw before, we changed the shared header library, and this affected the project that we're using it, and this affected the three projects that we're using it. So it can determine what can transitively be affected as well by your change. Then CI can rebuild and retest only what's really affected by your change, saving a significant amount of time and work. So if you've changed the new ticket library, and since the support tickets feature depends on the new ticket and the customer service app depends on support tickets
NX knows that customer service app and support tickets can be affected by this change. So it only runs their own tests, their own end-to-end tests, and whatever other tasks could be affected. So now our total CI time still is a matter of the projects being built and how long they take, but we're building fewer projects, only the affected ones. So that means that the total CI time is as long as our parallel task. But we can do even better since NX is able to parallelize tasks. That's why. So you can run all 3 projects in parallel. This is why your total CI time is as long as your longest parallel task. Which first you have them. So let's put them all together now that we have the graph here. So in the naive workspace build time, the first example, we would build each project one by one and build everything. So it would take a huge amount of time. Using the affected command of NX, it will only build the parts that were affected. In the previous use case, it will only be the header and the 2 apps that we're using it and the E2E. And then if you parallelize all these tasks, you only need to worry about your longest parallel task. So let's see, even though we're able to rebuild only 3 of these projects, those projects depend on unaffected projects. So by default, each affected project will pull in the sources of its dependencies to build from scratch. But now NX supports the ability for libraries to be built independently, and consumers will consume the package libraries instead of sources, which is cool, right? So this allows what we call incremental building. Incremental building really becomes powerful when you can cache and reuse the package libraries. So if I build and test the new ticket library in CI, and the design system and validators libraries have already been built and cached in CI's local cache, the builder cache can just build the source code inside the new ticket library without having to rebuild the source code from validators and design systems. So let's take a look at this example of building times for the 3 parts of your project. I hope it will show. Okay. That's it. If a dependency of the target has been built, the build doesn't need to be totally fresh. So each individual part can use the cache to save building time. If we put the affected and parallel functionalities in action together with the incremental cache, our build time is practically reduced to 1/4 of the initial. Because not only are we parallelizing the tasks and are only building the affected, but we're also using those cached parts of the libraries. So if we take a look from where we started and what we end up with, at each step, our build time is reduced. And eventually, with the use of everything, our total CI is as long, again, as our parallel task, but now it's very, very short. So come on, next slide, please. Okay, so what if, I really need to fix these automatic transitions. So what if CI didn't just have access to the cache that was generated on CI, but could access the output of commands that had already been run locally? And this is where the NX Cloud comes in. What NX Cloud does, and I hope this animation will stop now, please stop. So what NX Cloud does is that when you and the other developers of your team that are distributed across your company or the world now run a command and they use NX Cloud, the result of this command gets saved in the NX Cloud. So this is a distributed cache that can be used and reused by developers on your team that are anywhere, and it will not just use the cache of your machine. So if you put everything together, the affected, the parallel, the incremental cache, and the NX Cloud, which is the distributed cache of whatever command your team has run, then practically you can reduce your build times very, very, very much, as you can see from this graph here. If you see it all together, then you end up with practically minimum time. So this can actually result in build performance improvements like 10 times better. So the NX Cloud works together with the developers, it works together with your design system, and it works together for your organization so that everybody's happy. And there's also more. It's not just that NX offers. NX offers GitHub integration. You also have the NX console, which is a graphical user interface basically for the NX console. So instead of having to remember the commands that you type on your command line, like we saw in the demos, you can just use this graphical user interface of VS Code and just run the commands from there. You have more plugins. As we said, we have support for React, Node, and more. And please visit Modern Angular with an X. And for an X, you have to remember that you have modern tools, fast builds, and happy developers. And you can visit nx.dev/modernangular if you want more information, or you can just go to nx.dev in general. So that was my presentation. Thank you. Stop share.
Thank you very much. Very interesting topic. I'm more and more inspired to move to NX Cloud. Seriously.
It is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, the idea is perfect. Probably we have a set of questions. I'll ask them one by one. I'll probably ask mine first. We'll use the chance. The idea itself, as I said, sounds too good to be true. The question is, what are, because probably some enterprise solutions, some big projects already started using the NX Cloud, and what are the biggest challenges do they have on their path to this dream?
So what are the biggest challenge of a company?
Yeah, maybe some projects
in NX Cloud, you mean?
Yeah, to move to NX Cloud. Maybe some of them couldn't do it that easy because of some. So it's good information to know for other projects that also want to migrate like ours.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure I can answer accurately, but I'll give it a shot. I would say that, yeah, you know what? I cannot answer accurately, so maybe I will not try to answer in case I say something wrong. But let me think. A challenge for a company off the top of my head to integrate with NX Cloud would be to make sure that if they use NX, it would be pretty simple, right? If they already use NX, because it would just need a command, and they would just need to create a. I guess if it's a big organization, they would have to connect with someone from Nrwl to set them up. But if it's a smaller organization, I guess they can just set it up with the CLI and then make an account on the NX Cloud and just see the runs there. I guess that's the short answer, but I don't want to try and give a long answer that would be inaccurate.
Okay, thank you. So we will start with questions.
But if your question were how can a company that's not using an X would like to move to an X?
Yeah, that's exactly our case.
Okay, then if you have an Angular application, it's very, very simple because you can just use a command and it will transform your Angular workspace into an NX workspace. Let me find that command.
I remember it was something like make Angular faster or so.
Yeah. So that would be very, very simple, and it actually works very well. If you want to use that command, yeah, you just do ng add @Nrwl workspace, and it will go into the trouble of migrating and taking your whole application and restructuring it into an NX workspace, because the NX workspace already uses Angular JSON
as you saw in the demo. So it would basically just do some improvements there and restructure your folder structure.
I see, with ng command. I remember Nrwl provided some kind of package like with funny name, make Angular faster, that basically is doing the same. Okay, good. We will start with questions from YouTube. Please don't hesitate to ask your questions. And first question from Paulina. So, is it possible now use private Nxcloud for production applications for security reasons?
It is possible to create private Nxclouds, but I'm not sure if you mean to like run Nxcloud locally, like an on-prem scenario. I'm not sure this is. I don't think this is possible yet to like run a local server that will have Nxcloud installed. I don't think this is possible at the moment. But of course, you can use a private setup of Nxcloud. Like it will be in line. It will be like I guess on Nrwl's cloud, but your company will only have access to it.
Okay, good. Next one from Jakob. Not sure it's about NX, but to resume the question that how fast do you update libraries for new version of Angular? So it's probably the question about what's your suggestion to update the libraries?
So I can read this in two ways. If you're using NX, how fast are we as NX maintainers to make sure that all the tools that we use in order for you to build your app with NX, how fast are we, the maintainers, to make sure all the tools are up to date to the latest versions? The answer to that is that we try to update our tools to the latest versions so that each new version of NX has all the as good as this can be to use the latest version of other libraries. If you mean how I would suggest that you keep up to date, you keep your dependencies up to date with the latest versions, what NX does, which is very, very good, is that it helps you update from version to version very easily. So if you say have an NX workspace of version 9, and now it's and you want to update it to version 10 or version 11, you can just run a command nx migrate, and it will run schematics and generators to actually migrate the project and update all your libraries on its own. So you will not have to do any manual updating on your own. NX will take care of that by just typing in a command, saying that you want to migrate from that version to that, and it will make sure to keep all the packages up to date. So yeah, that's my answer, I think.
Okay, good. Thank you. And this is one that looks very general, but maybe in scope of NX. What's the reason to mix React and Angular applications? From YouTube.
That's a good question. I think that the answer is that it's the same reason that you would prefer to build something with React and something with Angular, because depending on what you want to build, you will use the respective tool. So if you feel that you have a project that needs to be built in React for some reason, you build it in React. If you have a project that needs to be built in Angular, you would build that in Angular. So NX gives you that option, gives you that freedom of choice, that you can, if you feel that if you think that you need some of your UI components to be written in React, then you can create a shared library in React and just use the shared components like in an Angular application if you need, like we saw in the demo. But I guess it depends on the use case.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions that we had from YouTube.
Okay.
One more time, again, thank you for your talk. And as I said,
thank you very, very much for having me.
Plan to migrate to the Nxcloud So,
yes, please.
good.